Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, it was the issue that was always going to be one of the most contentious during the whole Brexit process. It was, of course, the rights of EU citizens who had come to live, work and settle in the country. How many are there? Well, we think around about 3.2 million on a settled basis. Now, I was struck at the beginning of this process, knowing they'd ask us for lots of money, knowing this whole thing wouldn't be easy. But the one area that I thought was really straightforward and very simple from the beginning was this issue of those that had come to the country whilst we were members of the European Union. And I said this back on the 1st of March this year.
None of us who fought this referendum did so to say we should retrospectively change the law on people's rights who'd come to the country legally. We're not that kind of country. Yes, I think we let too many people in, but we did it legally. That's the point. It would be an outrage to suggest that somehow you came legally and a country like us is retrospectively going to change the law.
So I felt that was the sort of big offer. That was the one big generous thing we should have said at the start. Look, we're not a banana republic. These people all came here legally. We are going to respect that. And once we'd made that big offer, I then thought we should be tough as hell on the money and absolutely everything else. But no, the Prime Minister did want this to be part of the negotiating process, part of what culminated on Friday. Today, she was in the House of Commons after securing her deal in Brussels in the early hours of Friday morning, which of course allows the Brexit talks now to move on to the next phase, namely trade. And today, in the House of Commons, this is what Mrs May had to say.
EU citizens living in the UK will have their rights enshrined in UK law and enforced by British courts. And UK citizens living in the EU will also have their rights protected. The jurisdiction of the ECJ in the UK is coming to an end.
Now, I'm particularly keen to hear from EU citizens living in this country. I'm happy to hear from anybody, obviously, but if you're an EU citizen living in this country, I want to know from you, should Mrs May perhaps have done this a little bit earlier? And now that she has done it and backed it up with an article, a big open letter in today's Evening Standard, has she now got the balance right for EU citizens? And as we develop this argument, has she also got a plan to deal with immigration in the future? So I want to hear from you. Should she perhaps have done this earlier? And now that she has, do we think the balance is about right? Let me know what you think by calling 0345 6060 973. You can text me on 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. You can watch us on Facebook, and of course you can comment there too. So not only did we get this deal, so-called deal, in the early hours of Friday morning, but now we have in the Evening Standard, she's clearly trying to make up with George Osborne, isn't she? We now have this big open letter sent out from number 10 Downing Street. And it is, well, to say that it's fulsome and its praise of EU citizens would be a huge understatement. She says in this letter, I greatly value the depth of the contributions you make, enriching every part of our economy, our society, our culture and our national life. I know our country would be poorer if you left, and I want you to stay. She says there have been underlying anxieties. Well, I guess that's because we didn't guarantee the rights of those already here earlier. And she talks about a new settled status scheme that will apply for EU citizens. So I find myself in the opposition, having been critical of her for not grasping this nettle in day one. Now that she has done it, I almost feel the tone of this letter is over the top. I wonder what sort of Brits reading this think, gosh, what about us? I mean, are we not very important? I'm also concerned that what the deal effectively does is almost nothing to cope with the issue of EU immigration. And I think, look, of course, ultimately, the Brexit vote was about making our own laws in our own country, having our own courts make big decisions, but it was also about controlling immigration. And I don't think this deal that she's done is going to do anything to control EU immigration for a very, very long time. My first caller this evening is Ergan, who's calling from Preston. Good evening.
Well, it's Jürgen, but thank you very much for taking my call. I've been living in the UK now since 1998, and I just can't believe how they're treating Britain, really, to be honest. I've lived under British law, and I wish to live under British law.
Right, so you're perfectly happy to live under British law?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? I came here to live and work, and I've worked every single day, paid my taxes.
Well, Jürgen, you are now in a very different position, of course, to me, because you now not only have the protections of British law, you also have the protections of EU law, and the European Court of Justice will be able to rule in your favour against a High Court judgment, even Supreme Court judgment in this country. So, in a sense, we've kind of given too much, really, haven't we, as a UK government?
Absolutely. I don't understand why any citizen would be treated different to British citizen. British law should rule, really. British law should rule.
Yes, it was very interesting. You know, we talked to Jacob Rees-Mogg about this last week, and he made the point that, you know, US soldiers based out in Pacific Islands, you know, have more rights than the locals, and that causes a lot of friction in those areas. And I wonder, you know, because Mrs May says, look, don't worry, there'll only be a few cases every year. We only have to refer, she tells us, to the European Court of Justice. But it won't be long, Jürgen, in my opinion, before there is a test case that gives somebody like you, effectively, more rights than the local British population. And I agree with you. I think there is something wrong with that. And by the way, since you've come here in 1998, what do you think of it so far?
Well, it's made my home. I mean, I prefer to live here now, and I'm more British than Swedish, to be honest.
No, fair enough. And did you understand in the referendum why the sheer numbers of people coming to Britain was an issue?
Yeah, I do. I mean, myself, I came here because my skills were of a shortage, and the way people are coming here and not adjusting or coming to claim benefits, it's beyond belief, to be honest.
No, interesting. Jürgen, fascinating phone call. Thank you very, very much. On Twitter, I get an absolutely key question. Has Theresa the Appeaser allowed EU people to bring family too? ? If so, that will add at least 3 to 6 million at a stroke. So much for immigration control. Well, I can't comment on your 3 to 6 million figure, but what I can tell you is this, that more than 3 million EU citizens living here will be allowed not just to live and work in the UK in line with the current freedom of movement principles, but the deal includes the reunification rights for relatives, including spouses, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, those who do not live in the UK but choose to come and join them in the future. And it will extend to future spouses or partners of EU citizens. Now, I'm not for one moment going to give you a prediction of what that means in terms of numbers, but the fact is, the very thing that so many millions of people turned out to vote for in that referendum, people in many cases who'd never voted in their lives, they did it because they felt simply, in numerical terms, way too many people were coming into the country, and they wanted us to get a grip. And as far as EU citizens are concerned, nothing is going to happen. Effectively, an open door is going to stay there for many, many years to come. And when I said at the beginning I wanted Mrs May to be open and generous to those that had come here legally, I wasn't extending that to those that wanted to come in, you know, over the course of the next few years. So, yeah, I am certainly concerned about that. Nigel, how can you say now that you were in favour for Europeans to continue to live in this country when you based your entire Brexit campaign on immigration? Pepe, I made it clear all through the campaign that we are not a banana republic. We were not voting Brexit to throw people out who'd come here legally. I did think too many had come, but they'd come legally. And that was not the issue in the referendum. The issue was about getting a grip and drastically reducing the numbers coming in the future. And at the moment, I don't see any plan to do that. If somebody out there can tell me I'm wrong, please, 0345 6060 973. I'm going to go to Dean, a new caller from Uxbridge. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. We've never spoken before. It's my first time.
Welcome.
I'm a bit nervous because I'm talking to you, which is great in a way, if I'm honest here.
Right. Go on. Dean, you're on LBC. I won't interrupt you. Don't be nervous. Tell us what you think.
I've got a lot of respect for you, Nigel. At the same time, I've got a lot of respect for Theresa May. I mean, she dealt with Brexit in a good way, and a nice way, I assume. I'm an East European guy, Romanian originally. When I came here 7 years ago to scrub the toilets, I couldn't speak a single word in English, and now I work as a business manager for a company. And I have a quite nice 6-figure salary. I'm quite happy with that. I've worked incredibly hard, you know. And I think Theresa May, thanks so much, sir. I think the way Theresa May the deal with the Brexit is so great because she caused as little destruction as is possible. Imagine logistics. How many people are working in a warehouse, East Europeans? A lot of them. And because it's a problem in the British culture. No one wants to work anymore. That job is for East Europeans. That job is for East European. That job is for East European. So at the same time, you wanna drop the number of people coming in this country, which is, I think, is right in a way, because my wage was bigger a few years ago than it is now, you know, which I think is right in a way. But at the same time, you want to cause as little disruption as is possible. Even if the European Court of Human Rights will have a say in the country, but in 5 years, no one can stop us saying, you know what, we want a referendum on that one.
Dean, in terms of disruption, I'm on your side. I think anyone that came here legally, should not have their rights interfered with. And I think she should have done this a long, long time ago. But Dean,
I disagree with you.
You disagree with me?
Yeah, I disagree with you because you cannot say, yes, I want everyone to stay in this country until EU they say the same thing about Brits living in those countries. You can't do that.
Well, Dean, I understand that, and that was the argument, that they couldn't do that until Brits' rights were guaranteed. But it seemed to me, once we'd made that big generous offer, they'd have had no choice. But Dean, do you understand the argument that that one of the things we voted for in this referendum was to get back a bit more control of our borders, to try and reduce net migration, which has been running at between 250,000 and 350,000 for years and years?
Of course, yeah, I agree with you, Nigel, and I think you're so right on that one, because you're right. But what's going to happen now is all the beggars, all the prisoners, they'll be sent back home. People who are not working just on benefits, they will be sent back home, because everyone's got a right here as long as you work. Understand? And in a few years' time, in 4, 5, 6 years' time, you're going to put borders back on. But we have to dig step by step, because imagine, Nigel Farage, imagine if in 3 years' time we're going to say no more immigrants, that's it, everyone back home. What's going to happen?
No, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. We were never going to do that. But if you're right that the government is going to get tough on beggars and criminals and people who haven't got work, if that's really what they're going to do, then I think you'll find that the Brexit voting population will cheer Theresa May to the rafters. At the moment, I don't see much evidence of it, Dean, but I thank you very much indeed for your call, and I give you 10 out of 10 for the success that you've had in this country. Well done. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:17.
Take a caller.
Okay, right. We have technical problems here at LBC. The first time I've experienced this in a year. In that case, if we're not going to the break, we're going to go to Swindon and go to Anton. Anton, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Nigel, yeah. Nice to hear you. Thank you for accepting my call.
Not at all. So tell me your story, Anton.
Well, I'm myself. I'm not a European citizen. I'm Russian myself, and my wife, she's a Portuguese.
Uh-huh.
And so actually, yes, she takes quite seriously all the stories around Brexit. She follows the news. And, there were a lot of discussions inside our family. What's actually going to happen with her? My child, my son, he's a Portuguese as well. So, and we are living in the UK since the year 2000, so we are well settled in here. We've got a house, we've got jobs, so we are actually living the same life as all originally British people here.
So you're pleased and relieved, Anton, that your rights have been guaranteed?
Well, to be honest, we expect there are going to be positive outcome. We couldn't imagine that, all the European citizens will be kicked out of the country. They will lose their rights, which, they have to change their lives. They've been living here for 20 or more years. So, it was quite unimaginable. We couldn't imagine it will happen.
No, and nor could I.
So, no, so it was not a relief, yeah. So, what really... There is a big question mark about legislation, because my understanding that the European citizens, they're protected by the European law,
yep,
as well as the British.
Yes.
And so it's going to be quite interesting story. Imagine there is a company, and a big company with a mixed stuff, like, European citizens and British ones, and there is a massive redundancy, ongoing, which is kind of quite common situation. So European citizens, they will be protected by European law, which provides much more rights, much more protection for the employees than the British law.
So it means two kinds of citizen living within the same country, and that, to me, Anton, I just think it's wrong.
Well, I'm not quite sure whether it's wrong or right, because there are no details. Yeah, but the thing is that again, in my example, if we have this redundancy, then British people, they will be underdog against the European citizens. Yeah, just because European law is much more protective, and after Brexit, it appeared that British people, they will have a much less rights than European citizens.
Yeah, and there's something wrong with that. Anton, I thank you for your call, and we've so far had overseas-born callers, but there is a British comment here from Darren on Twitter who says, is it an apology to the UK citizen she has betrayed? Well, I don't know about that. But what I do know is that she's been overly fulsome in her praise today of EU citizens, having taken a very, very long time to recognise their rights. And as Anton just said, they were always going to be recognised anyway. Now, I am now entirely confident that any technical gremlins that have bedevilled us have now gone. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:21. Well, Theresa May, it took her a long time to guarantee the rights of EU citizens. She's now done it in a very, very fulsome way, and she's given a deal allowing current EU citizens not just legally to have their rights in this country, but to be able to go above our courts to the European Court of Justice, and for family reunions to continue for many, many years to come. Margaret from Surrey says, Mrs May definitely OTT, given far too much away. It's nauseating. This deal has one thing bothering me. EU citizens will exploit Northern Ireland as their backdoor into the UK, says Chris. Well, we'll look at that, but Northern Ireland, of course, is not in the Schengen area, which does make things a little bit easier. And the other big point about this is, today the Prime Minister was in the House of Commons and receiving considerable support, particularly from the Remainers in the Conservative Party, but equally quite a lot of Leavers seemed pretty happy as well. And it's as if the issue of immigration has disappeared from the national debate. It's as if our political class aren't bothered about it, and perhaps they think the British public aren't bothered about it. And that's interesting, because an ORB poll published today by Britain Elects, field work done last week, shows 46% of voters believe having greater control over migration is more important than free trade access to the European Union. 46% against 38%. So still a very big majority think securing our borders is what matters. And at the moment, we're not on course to secure our borders for many, many, many years to come. So I think there is quite a gap that has opened up between how ordinary folk feel and what is being talked about in Westminster and in the press around it. Paolo is calling from Soham in Cambridgeshire. Good evening, Paolo.
Good evening.
So, what is your story, Paolo?
Sorry?
What is your story?
Well, my story is quite simple. I came from Portugal in 2002, I got over here with 40 euros in my pocket, and I was able to buy a house in here, make my life in here. Not thanks to the European community, but to the English way of life.
Yeah.
The way I see it is that you're not the best or the worst, but you are most definitely different, and I fit with that difference.
Okay, so you've enjoyed being here then?
Oh, yes. I like to go home, of course. I passed 30 years in Portugal, and I can't forget that, and it's part of me. But the fact is that we have to be pragmatic, and that is my life. My two sons are here.
Yep.
Both of them took the British nationality.
Uh-huh.
One of them is on the British Army already, so I'm extremely proud. And what Theresa May has done, I think she lost the war not in Europe, but she lost the war here in England. There's so much pressure on her to make a deal that she will give away things to many just to make the deal.
Yes.
But I think she's losing over here, not over there. She's already losing here.
Well, do you know what? I think you're right. I think there is more public disquiet about this deal that most people are letting on and recognising. I do agree with that. Paolo, tell me, do you feel, as a Portuguese man living here, that our legal system simply isn't good enough for you and that you need to have recourse to the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg to protect your rights?
No. That is part of a scheme. I left Portugal when Portugal joined the euro.
Yes.
And I suffer that because everything double on price, but not my wages. My rights gone, but not my obligations. And that's why I came over here. I was a postman in Portugal.
Yep.
People complain about the Royal Mail here, the conditions they have. In 2002, the post office in Portugal already lost. People don't have no rights whatsoever on that European community. I'm a lorry driver.
Yep.
And I go and park on the service. And I park on the service in, for instance, Beach Hang on the M11. There's Spanish there. You park on the M40, there's another Spanish, there's French. So if you guys are so bad, why so many people is here? The reality is simple.
Well, we're not. Absolutely. We're not bad. We're not a banana republic. We've got a great legal system. We've got great protections. And for us to have signed up to the ECJ to giving you superior rights to UK passport holders, Paolo, is wholly, totally unnecessary. Thank you. Another great story, another great success story as well. Going to go to Scylla in Tunbridge Wells. Good evening, Scylla.
Oh, hello, Nigel. Good evening. I am originally from Hungary, and I'm just very surprised about this because I am very happy as Theresa May did this. I find it a bit unnecessary, really. But I'm also surprised about this reaction of yours because we are not the enemy of this country, and you know exactly what the problem is. Unfortunately, as the Portuguese man talked just before, same with Eastern European countries, the wages are still 75% lower than Western Europe. I think this West and East business have to be stopped, and the salaries have to be equal everywhere. At least have to rise it up because plenty of multinational companies in Eastern Europe, unfortunately, purposefully pushing down the wages. They are not paying the wages properly, and that's why.
But Scylla, we couldn't have the same minimum wage in Hungary and Romania as we have in the United Kingdom, could we?
No, and we couldn't. Oh no, I'm not expecting to be exactly the same. Oh my God, definitely not. But not 75% lower.
Okay.
That is just too much. And another thing I like to say, what I find it very strange, as you know, the Visegrad countries are actually, this is the one thing what they like to change, about the wages to be kind of equal. So the immigration will be stopped to the West and it will be...
Well, one thing, Scylla, for certain, is whatever debate we're having here in this country about immigration is actually a pretty mild imitation of the debate that's currently going on in Hungary with your Prime Minister about immigration and about refusing Mrs. Merkel's quotas. I thank you very much, Scylla, for your thoughts and your call. You're certainly not the enemy. No one's ever tried to portray you as the enemy. But I do wonder whether Mrs. May, having taken a long time to reckon EU citizens' rights, hasn't now simply given away too much. I think she has. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30. And so Theresa May in the House of Commons being robust. And I've got more questions, not just about EU citizens' rights, family reunions, and whether we're actually going to get a grip over immigration at all in the next few years, but also over the Brexit bill. You see, it's really odd, isn't it? Because last week there was the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, saying, I find it inconceivable that we would walk away from obligations that we recognise as an obligation. This is not a credible scenario. It's not the kind of country that we are. And then today, Theresa May, back from the summit, was pushed by Jeremy Corbyn about this estimated Brexit bill of 35 to 39 billion sterling. It'll be more than that by the time we finish. But anyway, and when she's pressed by Jeremy Corbyn on that, she says, if we don't agree that partnership, i.e. the new trade deal, then the offer is off the table. Now, I was actually quite encouraged by that, because I thought we made a huge number of concessions on Friday. But if genuinely all of these concessions, including the Brexit bill, could be withdrawn unless the EU play fair with us on trade, and if I really thought that, I'd be a little bit less critical of the government. I just don't see it being the case. And on the immigration issue, she does chop and change, you know, this Prime Minister. It is remarkable. I mean, the Tory party conference in 2015, it was the moment, I think, that the Daily Mail and others thought this is the woman that we're going to back, because she said the evidence from the OECD, the House of Lords Economic Affairs Committee and many academics shows that while there are benefits of selective and controlled immigration, at best the net economic and fiscal effect of high immigration is close to zero. So there is no case in the national interest for immigration on the scale we've experienced over the last decade. That's what she said to the Tory party conference in 15, despite having been the Home Secretary for the previous 5 years and in charge of it. And then today she says, I greatly value the depth of the contributions you make, enriching every part of our society, our economy, our culture, and our national life. I know our country would be poorer if you left, and I want you to stay. So it is quite difficult sometimes to work out with any length of timeline exactly where the Prime Minister stands on this. And I get on Twitter from Anne, it's looking more like Theresa May is sacrificing our people in favour of bootlicking in Brussels. This is outrageous. Nigel, this is EU gerrymandering. Get a few million more Remainers into the country before the second referendum, says Rich. Well, I don't know about that either. But what I do know is we've given away an awful lot. And so far, EU citizens that have rung us, that have made their lives in this country, don't seem to think they need an extra court in Luxembourg to back up their rights. I wonder what Adrian in Putney makes of this. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Nigel, sometimes I have the impression that you are assuming that every EU city are dying to stay here. I think you must know that many people are planning to leave. And I think people should know that many people like myself are planning to leave, because we cannot live in a country that we don't feel welcome. We don't have that sense of belonging, especially after that referendum. We know half of the people don't want us here, despite the fact that they don't say it to you. But we know some people don't want us to stay here. So it's a very tricky situation. Many people are leaving as well. I think it's important for you to know that many people are going as well.
Well, Adrian, people come, people go. That's true. Of course, that's right. Although there have been, I must say, Adrian, there have been some wildly inaccurate stories on this. I mean, the huge brouhaha and scare, 10,000 EU citizens leave the NHS, and it's painted out as being a total disaster. And what they didn't tell us was that 13,000 had come. So, yeah, I mean, do you, Adrian, let me ask you.
Yeah.
You know, nobody in that referendum campaign, and I guess, you know, in many ways, I've been the hardest vote for leave for years and years and years. Yeah. But I never in that referendum campaign or since suggested, did I, that anybody who'd come here legally didn't have the right to be here?
Yeah, I understand. You never did, but it's not about only yourself. It's about other people as well and the way they perceive it. And I feel it every day when I go shopping, when I have a meeting with my British friends. I know that some people, you know, they feel uncomfortable, you know, being in with other foreigners. You know, it's very clear to me. So, and for me, particularly my case, I don't feel comfortable either. So that's why I'm planning to leave in the next 6 months.
And you think, Adrian, or your experience says to you that the referendum, in your personal experience in Putney, has changed the atmosphere?
In many ways, yes. I've seen, you know, people on the trains, when you go shopping, when you go to a party. The feeling is like, you know, when you go to a party, but you haven't been invited to the party. So it's a bit awkward because you don't want to stay in a party.
I know.
The party is very fun, but you don't want to stay in the party anymore.
I feel like that every day I'm in the European Parliament. I can tell you, I know I'm not welcome. Do you? Well, I'm there tomorrow, actually, and I've no doubt they'll be as unpleasant to me as ever. Adrian, do you feel, and you know, and I'm listening very carefully to what you're saying.
Yes.
Do you feel that the Prime Minister's letter in tonight's Evening Standard perhaps helps then in that situation?
In a way, we feel grateful for that because I think she had to take her time to make that decision. It couldn't be like a next day, like you said. She had to take her time, and we feel very grateful for that decision. I feel a little bit relieved now, but it's still not enough to make me stay here. So I'm planning to leave. But we feel grateful for that. Yes.
Okay. And will you go back to Italy, Adrian?
No, I'm planning to going to Portugal, and I know jobs out there is not very great right now, but I'm going to figure out something.
Okay, listen, Adrian, thank you for your call, for your experience. And I'm getting lots and lots of EU citizens on the lines tonight and texting and tweeting me, and please, please, please keep going. Nigel, the issue of immigration has been forgotten. The problem is that since June last year, everyone that voted Brexit has been labelled a racist. Try to have a conversation about immigration now and you'll receive a torrent of abuse. People's fears have simply been driven underground. And that's Paul from Oxford. And Paul, I have to say there is some truth in what you say. They're once again making it very difficult in this country to have an open, sensible debate on this issue. And yet I know there is an absolutely massive gap between what is being said in Westminster and the way that many ordinary people are feeling. Theresa May is leading EU citizens into a state of false security. The next general election will be fought on the manifesto of promises to reverse Brexit or fulfil the promises this government failed to deliver. Brexit, that's every component part of what will happen when another party is elected. Well, David, I think if we do finish up going for this transition phase, then I think the entire next general election will be fought on Brexit. It'll almost be a rerun of the referendum. And that is why I am so opposed to the next potential stage of this process, which is us going into transition that I believe will last up until that election. I want us to have this done and dusted well before that election. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45. After finally protecting the rights of EU citizens who'd legally come to the United Kingdom, Theresa May now is absolutely over the top, I think, in her praise of their contribution, directly contradicting what she told the Tory party conference back in 2015, namely that immigration, if it's controlled, can be a great benefit, but that mass immigration rarely is. And I do think we're having too small a debate in this country at the moment about future immigration and the aspirations of millions who voted for Brexit. I'm going to go to Alexandra in Woodford Green next. Good evening, Alexandra.
Good evening, Nigel. Hi.
Hi there. So give me your story, Alexandra.
I am a Romanian citizen. Been here for about 9 years.
Uh-huh.
I recently got my British citizenship.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. I would say that the whole Brexit is not necessarily bad, but people weren't really aware what they voted for, and that caused a lot of issues.
Go on.
However, on the immigration or controlled immigration, I would agree with that, simply because I think in 2014, when they Romania and Bulgaria, they were giving free way to come here.
Yep.
And I personally, as a Romanian citizen, I kind of panicked because I thought, oh my gosh, the whole of both countries will just move here. And I came here and I applied for a work permit, and it's kind of taking bit by bit.
Yeah.
And now I have been able to apply for my citizenship and get it. So to me, I would say, if you really want to come here and you're able to work honestly and do what you have to do, there is no reason for anyone to kick you out.
No, well, nobody, Alexandra, nobody at any point, I want to re-emphasise this, because I think it is actually quite important. Nobody on the Leave side advocated that people like you, who'd been here for years and been here legally, should be kicked out. That was never part of the debate. What was a very real debate was when we opened the doors in 2014 to Romania and Bulgaria, because it was pretty obvious to me that many, many tens, ultimately hundreds of thousands more people would come to the country. And that is exactly what's happening, isn't it?
Exactly. And I don't particularly agree with that, because we come from slower developed countries. We come here and we think that is it. This is rich money all over, which is not like that. Because in order to get a better job, you got to educate yourself, you got to study and work really hard. It doesn't just come.
No.
And I think this is a mistake that a lot of European people are making.
Now, you may have made a mistake, Alexandra, a very big mistake, because...
Why is that?
Well... now you see, because you've gone for British citizenship, you now can only go to the British courts. Had you stayed as a Romanian, you could have had two courts to go to, couldn't you?
Yes.
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. You've chosen Britain.
I speak from both perspectives, because I'm not planning to renew my Romanian passport.
Right.
I haven't been to Romania in about 8 years and a half. It's been a long time.
Yep.
And the gentleman before me was talking about having British friends and, feeling a bit uncomfortable. I agree with that to a certain extent. I think it's how you allow people to treat you. If you don't feel welcome, you move away. It's not by force. But you have to find the right people to be around. Yeah. Because I met some really lovely British people. And I kind of figured out that Britain is actually not bad as I thought 5 years ago.
Oh, well, I'm relieved to hear that. And now that you are a UK citizen, Alexandra, looking ahead, what kind of immigration policy should we have going ahead from here?
I would say a controlled one, however, quite an easy one. I find that is, when I applied for my permanent stay, although that was just £65 per application, and now they're saying they want to reapply. Everyone that has one has to reapply. Why? Because £65 times 3.2 million citizens are here. That is how much money? And it kind of gets me thinking, is it just a money matter, or are they trying to actually get everyone checked and see, okay, that's where we're heading towards? Why was the reason why I decided to apply for my citizenship and now wait?
Quite honestly, how we manage all of this is a bit of a mystery to all of us. Alexandra, I thank you for your call and for your experiences. Sylvie on Facebook says, "Hi Nigel, we must not forget Jacob Rees-Mogg. He was in the chamber today, but so far he has not commented. I know, I've been watching. I believe he is biding his time, and shortly we will hear from him and his supporters." Sylvie, I've been watching that very carefully too. One person on the Eurosceptic side who has commented is Peter Bone, the Tory MP for Wellingborough, who was here in this studio yesterday. And if you go to lbc.co.uk, you can see Peter saying, "Far from agreeing to 35 or 39 billion, we don't owe them a penny." Have a look at lbc.co.uk. You may agree with it, you may disagree with it, but it's certainly an opinion that is put in a very, very forthright way. Shaz on Facebook says, "I hoped we'd be out by now, but it seems we don't have a choice. Something Mrs May, I won't use the word, is driving us down a route that we don't have a voice for. Politicians don't speak for us." Shaz, I genuinely think many, many millions of people looked at that so-called deal, looked at what was portrayed over the weekend, and in the House of Commons today as being some huge victory, but they looked at it and said, this is not what we voted for. And I was told over the weekend by somebody quite well connected in the Tory party, Nigel, you don't understand. They wanted 65 or 70 billion from us. The fact it's only going to be 40 billion is a really good deal. Well, the fact something is not as bad as it could have been is hardly, in my book, a victory. Maria is calling from Manchester. Good evening, Maria.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Where are you from, Maria?
I'm from Spain. I'm from Tenerife.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, okay.
And how do you feel? How do you feel Mrs. May's handling this as far as your rights are concerned?
Well, I think she's doing her best. But what I don't understand, and I can't believe, that you are trying to make people think that you have fight for those rights, because you have put all the European citizens in a very difficult situation. We don't feel welcome in this country. I've been working 7 years in this country, firstly doing jobs that nobody else wanted to do here. Unfortunately, I'm working now in one of the universities, but I'm leaving this country next February because I don't want to live in a country that doesn't welcome me. You know, and more than 2 million Britons are living in Spain, and they are very welcome, and they go every year on holidays, and now you are treating us as shit. So
well, I won't take that, Maria. I'm not sure that's. I'm not sure that's fair, Maria.
Right.
I'm not sure that's fair. I mean, look, I've always taken the view that of all the European countries, in terms of how we'd handled post-war immigration, we'd probably been one of the best and one of the most successful. Did people get upset, Maria, when a net figure of 30,000 a year that we had for 60 years became 1/3 a year? Yes, they did get upset. I mean, going on from here, Maria, do you think it would make sense for us to maintain open borders with the European Union?
Or people didn't know what they were voting for. That was the problem. That was the problem, because you made sure to make people think that we were here stealing jobs, stealing money, or I don't know what. So I don't believe you, I don't trust you, and I don't agree with you.
No, that's fine, Maria. You're absolutely fully entitled not to agree with me, and I do understand that. But I just want to set the record straight. Did I say that excess EU migration had driven down wages? Yes, I did. Did I say we had to get a grip of it? Yes, I did. But, Maria, at every single point during that referendum and since, I have said that if people like you came here legally, those rights should be respected. And I've always said that, and I've been urging the Prime Minister to do that for a very, very long time. Maria, I thank you. And in the end, the Prime Minister did, but did it with this extraordinary letter to the Evening Standard, cheering up George Osborne, I've no doubt, and she has struck a deal that not only gives the European Court of Justice say and gives EU citizens double rights over the course of the next 8 years, but from what I can see, through family reunion and everything else, there is going to be no change to the effective open door policy to the rest of the European Union for many years to come. The one prediction I will make is that you may think that because of the referendum, because of what's been said since, that immigration has disappeared as an issue in UK politics. I promise you it will come back to be the major issue that it really is. Can't tell you how long it will take, but it will come back as a key issue because people care about it. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night from Strasbourg at 7. Coming up at 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you.